Welcome to the final part of our 4-part series on the Ultimate Exchange. I'm Neil White and I'm joined today by my co-host Richard Stone and my two excellent guests, Elisa Castro and David Barker. We're talking about a really interesting topic today around culture, around the impact around change programs and how that can have an effect on people in the organization. And actually by using tools, techniques and software products like Dimension can really have a positive impact. I know sometimes when we talk around change programs, particularly around digital change program, culture can be almost have a negative connotation. You know, if you're doing that sort of big bang approach and you're not invested time in terms of the end user that's using it, that could become a real challenge for them. But there are certainly different ways of managing that culture change. And if you address it early in terms of, you know, your sort of your early decision making, then you can certainly have some real positive impacts. In addition to that as well, though, you know, we've got you both here, David and Elisa, in terms of Dimension software, but there are different ways of doing that cultural change. And actually, sometimes technology doesn't have to be that scary. You know, you can blend it into the way you're working and organically grow it. I think is that probably a good way of saying it in terms of continuous improvement?
Yeah, I would think so. So one of the feedback that we have received from customers is that the difference they see with using our platform is that we can actually adapt to their needs and the way that they manage their business, not the other way around. How many times you have seen that even it happens in any companies that you need to adapt to the system and then it's really hard to do any changes because the system says you can't. So it's the other way around, actually, like you said, how you can, as a company, a technology company, how you can help them to put in place systems that can allow that collaboration, that communication cross department, how you can integrate their culture, which is at the end of the day the soul of that organization, into their processes using technology.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So just picking up on the change, you mentioned that we want to make this a positive experience and you get energy going behind it and people get emotional about it and hopefully get on board and want to do more and more.
Yeah.
And time's gone in the past. You want information, you want reports, and it's IT department, can you help me? Mm-hmm. And it's all too slow. And, you know, it almost stalls that change process.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think there is a fear of what if I have the system and do I have to get developers in here to create a new field or something? So, yeah, we've recently added the likes of a report builder. So you can actually, within the web browser, just add additional fields and charts or whatever you want into the report, and then that gets triggered and rendered on some sort of event. So, for example, end of batch or some sort of trip event, or even just time basis or a shift handover. So being able to author that report, render it on whatever you want and adapt to your process and your company culture, that just makes it easier to adopt.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about people. We've got the aging workforce. We've also got our new starters and that wealth of knowledge about what's gone on in the past. We've got the shift logs. We talked about the use of AI. How do we enable the new starters, which, we could flag particular reports to say, at the end of this shift or this production run, we see a particular problem. Why? There could be training need. And with this information we can collect and share and distribute, it helps us look at what training is needed in an organisation as well.
Right.
That's right, yeah. I mean, it's something we look at with things like a process safety dashboard, right? Mm-hmm. So process safety covers a whole wide range, but, it could be safety instrumented systems and safety critical elements, but all the way through to, are these people trained? Are they, have they been inducted? Are they competent to operate the plant? So, that whole wide range of cultural aspects, in a company, can be right through to training and, maintenance practices. Are we constantly firefighting with corrective maintenance rather than planned and, proactive maintenance? So, there's a whole range of different, KPIs that can be pulled together.
And I think you pick up on a really good point here with safety. It is part of culture. A lot of the industries we work in, safety has to come first. Mm-hmm. A lot of the meetings will start with safety meetings. Or why couldn't they be using the reports, the information we're getting from these systems? What did we see last week? What could we do? Because safety is critical, because people are critical assets. I'm sure we should call them assets, but people are important. And it's that whole safety behind all of this. Yes, production, yes, the people. We've got to make sure what we do is safe, because safe is part of that culture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, all businesses want their employees to go home safe at night, and we as individuals, we don't want to have an accident at work, do we? And that whole culture has really, I suppose, come to life over the last 10, 15 years, where it is almost like the number one KPI, isn't it, in terms of, we've got to have the right safety culture. But to help generate that safety culture, you can use digital tools, technologies like Dimension software, like Report Builder, etc., to bring that together, to highlight training needs, issues within the operations, whatever the case may be, to really emphasise the need for safety. And we're definitely, within our business, certainly, Richard, we see safety-related projects, opportunities, challenges for business around how do we improve that, and using technologies like yourselves to do so.
Yeah, I think the other thing it picks up on is that you build up thoughts that certain things go on in a production process, which sometimes aren't true. The example, a company, they were having downtimes and they assumed it was the maintenance team that wasn't working that effectively. Yeah. What it actually turned out to be is there wasn't enough maintenance people. They didn't have an unreliable plant. It was big. Where did they need to go first? Yes, this piece of equipment might have been down, but further on there was a far more critical one. Right. So you ended up with a bit of a blame culture going on, which was wrong, because it wasn't someone's problem. It was actually a lack of information. And all these tools can help dispel those rumours, those thoughts as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think in that point, I have seen as well that in companies what happens sometimes is that not everybody has access to this information. So the more eyes you have on the information, the more initiatives as well you can see happening within your organization, because even people that you would think, they don't have access to that data and it's okay, they are brilliant people to give them some tools, because they can give you some know-how that you actually are not aware of, like you are saying with your maintenance team, that they were actually lacking access to say, hey, we need some help here, because
Yeah, I think another example as well where it was the shift supervisors that actually came up with this. They were driving for more production output, and it was hard, and it was that positive culture change that came from the operations director in the end. They empowered those shift supervisors with the right information, and actually in the end they justified £15 million spend on new equipment because they could show, I can't do any more. We've tried hard, we've eliminated what we can, but it turned that culture around from, it certainly wasn't blame, it was totally encouragement, and people felt enabled and empowered to go and do more.
Correct.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I've been involved in the power industry, and I was talking to a guy a year or two ago, and there's been a lot of money on process safety, and what he said though is with that spend has actually really improved their reliability, right, and the availability of their plant. So it's interesting how, I hadn't thought how those two are correlated, but it seems to be that get your safety culture right and your processes around there, and your control system, safety devices and so on, and that then flowed on to the reliability of the plant to be world leading availability factor.
Okay. Fantastic. That was a great conversation around the culture aspect. It's really interesting how that sort of access to information really improves health culture, but also the other topics we talked around people, process and production. So thanks very much. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you for joining our final part around disruption management and culture. We've had a fascinating conversation. If you missed the other sessions around people, process and production, join in and have a listen. We've had a fantastic time for doing this. Thank you very much. And that ends our ultimate exchange. If you want to see more and you want to tell your friends, share, subscribe, like, and thank you very much from us all here at Capula and Dimension Software.